Okay, guys, welcome back to a new video here. I'm going to be showing you Dave Smith versus the trigonometry guy on Piers Morgan. Dave Smith absolutely leveled this guy, who's basically defending every single justification in the book for Israel invading Iran, basically. Pretty wild stuff, as well as U.S. involvement, making so many different kinds of excuses for them. And this comes right before the U.S. attack on Iran, which I'm sure all of you guys have heard by now, where the U.S. basically dropped major bunker buster bombs on the Iranian nuclear facilities, and it does not seem to be successful. Apparently, the Iranians evacuated most of their nuclear materials before the attack, which makes sense. And they don't even know where a lot of the uranium is that they're storing. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now, guys. And now the United States is at war with Iran. So, Konstantin Kisin, the guy in this video who Dave Smith is debating, basically got what he wanted, okay? So, we're going to be showing you the clips of this. And some of the justifications he was using is absolutely insane. Every single thing, he just throwing the propaganda out there, defending Israel, every single thing they do. It's never their fault. It's the U.S.'s fault. And they're just trying to take over Iran because they're trying to take out Iran because they don't want them to get a nuclear bomb. Of course, it's not about regime change or anything, which is, of course, is what's going on. The president of the United States literally said tonight, you have all these propagandists like Charlie Kirk out there, supposedly anti-war, saying it's not about regime change. J.D. Vance this morning, not about regime change. Pete Hegseth this morning, not about regime change. Well, guess what? The president of the United States said tonight it is about regime change. He brought up the possibility of why not make Iran great again? Let's have some regime change. Absolutely disgraceful. What a shameful point we are. And you have a number of members of Congress like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling for his impeachment. I mean, this is an absolute disgrace what we see going on right now. So we're going to get into the first clip here. And guys, by the way, make sure to like and subscribe. It's super good for the algorithm. Hit that subscribe button. My Patreon link is down below as well if you want to support the channel in that way too. So here's the first clip, and we'll talk about it after. Absolutely wild propaganda coming from this guy, Konstantin Kisin. Truly remarkable. Here's a clip, and we'll talk about it after.
Who pursued them. That's who's responsible. That's who should be to blame. And as you say, should be prosecuted for that. But the reason people rightly call you a moral relativist, Dave, is that you don't seem to understand the difference between, yes, I think it's quite clear that Benjamin Netanyahu wants regime change in Iran, but that is not the same as the regime in Iran wanting to destroy Israel. There's a big difference. If the mullahs in Iran wanted a different prime minister of Israel, that is not the same as wanting to destroy the entire country. And the reason Israel is as paranoid about these things as it is, let's be honest, it's surrounded, or at least was until recently when opinion in many Arab countries changed towards Israel, thanks to President Trump's Abraham Accords. Israel was surrounded by many, many countries who don't believe that it has a right to exist. And that's the difference. And that's why people call you a moral relativist.
Well, okay, well, that's totally ridiculous and makes no sense at all. And it only works. I'm about to answer, Konstantin. Let me finish. Because it only makes sense when you only say, I ascribe the worst of intentions to this regime and the best of intentions to this. What was overthrowing Muammar Gaddafi? Was that simply replacing the leader, or was that destroying the country, turning it into a failed
You've
state?
You've brought in a different conflict. Let's stick to Israel and Iran.
No.
The Israelis say we want regime change. The Iranians say we want to wipe you off the map. So that's pretty different.
Hold on. So I'm the moral relativist.
Yes.
But then when I point out what one side actually did, you run away from it and say, oh, no, we can't talk about that.
It's your government that destroyed Libya. It's not Israel.
It's your government. Do you know anything about this? Israel was lobbying for us to do this for years.
Who made the decision to do that?
Okay, so let's just start off with the absolute insanity coming from this guy's mouth. First of all, he talks about how the mullahs in Iran, they want to destroy Israel. Okay. They want to overthrow the Zionist regime, as they would call it. Okay, they want to destroy them. And he's saying, oh, they don't just want Netanyahu out. They want the entire country destroyed. Well, the Netanyahu and the Israeli government, they don't just want to overthrow and change the supreme leader. They want to overthrow the regime. They want to have their own installed Israeli puppet in Iran. They're pretty much openly saying that. They're preparing for the Shah's son, who has no justification for the throne whatsoever. They don't even want to install a quote-unquote democracy. They're just openly saying, we're going to have a monarch like the Crown Prince, Reza Pahlavi, as the leader of Iran now. That is what they're openly saying. So they want to destroy the regime of Iran as well. So I'm not sure exactly what this guy's talking about with that. They also want to overthrow the Iranians. They want to have an entirely new government, and they want to kill the Ayatollah. So again, It's just ridiculous propaganda coming from this guy Konstantin's mouth. Totally ridiculous. Netanyahu wants to destroy the regime. It makes no sense. Number two, they launched an aggressive war. He's talking about how Iran is the aggressor in this case. Israel is the one who launched an aggressive war on Iran. Iran did not attack Israel. By the way, even in the Iranian attacks on Israel that have taken place throughout the last year or so, the couple of attacks that have happened, it's been in response to them blowing up an embassy in Syria, destroying their embassy, and as well as a number of other things like political assassinations in Tehran and bombings. So the idea that Israel is defending themselves is totally ridiculous and just outright propaganda. But if you turn on Fox News and even CNN, you would think, oh, this is what's happening. But unfortunately, guys, most of the American public, they're not into the news like you guys are, like my viewers and audiences. But because, you know what, they just think, oh, Iran has a nuke, they're getting a nuke, we got to go in. And that's how they manufacture consent. That's how they get the American public on board. But by the time people realize this, it's far too late. It's an absolute disgrace what's happening here. And Israel and now the United States has launched an aggressive war against Iran. Not a preemptive war, not a defensive war whatsoever, an act of aggression. There's no question about it. And he brings up Israel surrounded by countries that hate them. What are you talking about? That's just outright propaganda. Egypt and Israel have been bordering each other for years now and decades. Israel has fine relations with the Israelis. They condemn what they do, but the idea that Egypt is going to go to war with Israel is absurd. We give them tens of millions of dollars in aid each year just so that does not happen. The Jordanians, again, also fine with Israel. They have no problem with Israel. They're not going to go into Israel. In fact, they intercept Iranian missiles coming in. They do not intercept Jordanian missiles or Israeli missiles going to Iran. So again, it just goes to show you the outright hypocrisy, and this guy has no idea what he's talking about. The Syrian leader al-Jawlani now, he has not condemned the Israeli airstrikes in Tehran. So the idea that Israel is surrounded by all these countries that hate it, it's not really true right now. It's just not true at all. And he brings up the Abraham Accords, which is beyond laughable. The entire reason October 7th happened, one of the reasons, was because of the Abraham Accords and cutting out the Palestinians from that agreement. So this guy has no idea what he's talking about, and he's just pushing Israeli propaganda. It's an absolute disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace, okay? And again, I can't stress this enough, guys. Do not listen to the propaganda. Israel invaded. Israel did the first strike here. Israel started this war. There's no question about it, okay? And Netanyahu's pushed wars for years. He's saying, oh, it's the American government's fault. Of course, that's such a straw man. Dave Smith is not saying that, oh, the American government has no sort of independence or any sort of decision-making. Of course it is her blame for starting the war in Iraq, starting this war, the Libyan overthrow of Gaddafi. But Netanyahu for years has been pushing these. He's testified before Congress saying if you overthrow Saddam Hussein, it'll be great for the region. He's been saying for decades that the Iranians are 2 weeks away, 2 months away or whatever from nuclear bombs. He's been saying this for decades. That should tell you all you need to know. That this is a total sham and a total joke. And the idea the Iranians would use a nuclear weapon immediately when they get one is also ridiculous. They would use it for deterrence so something like this doesn't happen. And I will say the biggest mistake the Iranian policymakers made was not getting a nuclear bomb decades ago. Because if they had a nuclear bomb, this wouldn't be happening. This would not be happening. The entire goal of this operation is regime change, and anyone with half a functioning brain can tell you that as well. Okay? And unfortunately, and I get it, because a lot of people aren't following the news like I am, like you guys are every single day, and they just want to get their news from Fox News. If the only sort of media consumption you're getting is from Fox News, you're probably going to have not a very good opinion on what the hell is happening right now. It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. Of course, the U.S. has agency, but the idea that Israel hasn't been pushing these wars for decades is laughable. It's a disgrace. And the amount of every single criticism of Israel, this guy Konstantin Kisin has an answer for. It's a disgrace. Okay. Here's a second clip and we'll talk about it after. And again, hit that subscribe button. Super good for the algorithm. I legitimately cannot believe this is the situation that we're in right now. Beyond insane. Here's a second clip and we'll talk about it.
Israeli? Why are you constantly running cover for them?
Because I believe in speaking the truth and being honest instead of dragging in stuff that's irrelevant.
Dude. No. It's not irrelevant at all. What are you talking about? Yes, my government is criminally responsible for the wars that they launched. And the Israeli government is also responsible for constantly trying to lure my government into more wars. That's what I'm standing up against right now.
So the American government is so gullible that they just go around invading countries on the say-so of Israel.
Again, what a straw man, dude. Benjamin Netanyahu came to America in 2002 and testified before Congress that the U.S. should overthrow Saddam Hussein, Muammar Gaddafi, and the Iranian regime. This isn't a secret. He's advocating that we fight more wars. And I'm telling you that this war, which we do not need to fight, which is not in our interest, has the potential to be devastating to our country, let alone the region. What is the moral relativism in any of that?
I
I'm not saying
explained to
the
you what the moral
Iranians are good
relativism
people.
is. One side wants to wipe the other one from the map. The other side wants not to have people who want to do that in charge of that country.
But
That's
Piers,
the difference.
But Piers, do you not get my, let me just see, Piers, do you get my point here? This is what they said from the very beginning of the war in Gaza. Israel doesn't want to wipe Gaza off the map. Israel just wants to retrieve the hostages and get it, but they are wiping it off the map. So why do you just get to have this standard where you decide what they want to do? I can't base it on their track record. We can't look at Iraq. We can't look at Libya. We can't look at Afghanistan. Evidently, as all the hogs can see, we can look at World War II. Everything is just like World War II, but it's not like the last 25 years of terror wars. These guys have wiped countries off the map left and right.
Well, as you know,
it's their track record.
Yeah, as you know, I've been increasingly critical of the Israel strategy in Gaza. It makes no sense until you hear people like.
Okay, so again, we see in the beginning, Dave Smith is like flustered almost. Like, bro, everything I'm saying, you just always have an answer for, and it's always never Israel's fault. He never is. Every single criticism Dave is throwing at him, he always has an answer. And it is kind of strange. So we ask him, are you an Israeli? Like, it's legitimately strange, the defense you're doing here. It is very weird. And again, he says, oh, you think the U.S. government is incompetent enough or global enough to be lured into these wars? I mean, considering it's happened time and time again, yeah, maybe. And it's not just that Israel lured them in, but it was absolutely done in coordination. And to say there's been no influence from the Israeli politicians or the policymakers is ridiculous. Again, Netanyahu for years has been pushing these wars. As I said, in Congress, he called for the overthrowing of Saddam. He called for the overthrowing of Gaddafi. And now he's calling for the overthrowing of the mullahs in Iran. So again, you see a pattern here. And for anyone to deny that pattern exists is frankly ridiculous. And of course, Netanyahu wants regime change, and we're directly supporting that. Now we're directly involved. And let's be clear, from the very beginning, this was planned out. There's no question about it. When the Israelis attacked, the Americans always intended on going in. Don't listen to anyone else. Because again, if they knew they couldn't destroy the nuclear facilities, the U.S. would not have the U.S. would not have let the Israelis go in if they weren't going to bomb with them. That's painfully obvious. Everyone knows that. It's an absolute joke. And again, the issue is, well, oh, why can't the Israelis do this? Because Konstantin, because you don't want to get into a forever war in the Middle East, which has hurt the American economy as well as lives all throughout the Middle East, as well as American soldiers for the last several decades. That's why. That's why a lot of people are against this war and this forever war in the Middle East against Iran. It's a total joke. And again, the fact that these people are buying this propaganda hook, line, and sinker once again, it does not make you very hopeful for the world. It really doesn't. It's beyond insane what's going on. But whatever happens, I'll keep you guys updated. So thank you guys so much for watching. Again, make sure to subscribe. Hit the subscribe button. It's super good for the algorithm. My Patreon link is down below. Drop a comment as well. And make sure to like the video, of course. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you later.